Hello, welcome to the James Cooley Show. It's your life. I'm your host, Dr. James J.C. Cooley. And wow, you know what today is? 306 degrees of health. And I tell you, every Wednesday, I know you all are going to be tuning in and we got absolutely fantastic guests today who's going to help share some things with us. But, we also got my co-host every Wednesday. 306 degrees of health. That's Dr. Michael Mantell. Doc, I'm excited about today's show. I'm totally pumped up and excited.
Well, thanks very much, JC, and hello, Michelle. I am just floating high on the guest we have today. I don't want to steal Michelle's thunder. I'm going to let Michelle introduce our illustrative guest, but her titles alone will let most of us will catch our breath from. But it's good to see you both. It's Wednesday, and here we are. We're 360 degrees of health.
And that's exactly what I'm talking about. But just like you just mentioned, Doc, I can't even start the show without the executive producer and the co-host and Dr. Cooley. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. We talked briefly with our special guest today, and she's wonderful. I mean, she is wonderful, and she is so excited and eager to share her wealth of knowledge based on the topic we're getting ready to discuss. So, audience, just get ready, get ready, get ready.
And regardless of which platform you're watching us, was it E360 television, Transfer TV, YouTube, LinkedIn, Twitter, over 55 was live platforms across the world. Hey, welcome to the show. If you want to be part of the conversation, just go to the platform that you're watching us on. Ask any questions in the comments portion that you might have. I promise you we'll get you an answer. Michelle, I can't take it no more. Can you please introduce the title of the show, purpose of the show, and this extraordinary guest that we have?
Oh, most definitely. So, audience, the title of today's show is 360-degree Health, Mental Health and Loneliness Crisis, and the Upsurge of the AI in Mental Health. Dr. James Cooley and guest co-host Dr. Michael Mantell will have a sit-down discussion with Dr. Jodi Halpern, and they will be talking about mental health and loneliness crisis, unmet needs, capitalism launching AI to deal with these issues, good uses of AI in mental health, medical records, etc., and increasing usage to replace human therapists, much more problematic, but there are key distinctions to be laid out. So let's talk about guests today. Jodi Halpern, MD, PhD, Chancellor's Chair and Professor of Bioethics, UC Berkeley, and a psychiatrist, is an international leader on empathy and post-traumatic growth. She's also an expert on the ethics of innovative technologies, including AI, gene editing, and neurotechnology. Halpern co-founded the Cooley Center for Ethics, Science, and the Public. Halpern received the Guggenheim 2022 Award in Medicine for her current book project, Remaking the Self in the Wake of Illness. So please welcome to the show, audience, Dr. Jodi Halpern.
How you doing, Dr. Jodi? How you doing today?
Well, after that warm welcome, I'm doing great.
Dr. Jodi, just like Dr. Mike and I, and Michelle, of course, I did our research on you, and you are incredible. You're doing so many great things, especially in the world of mental health, because uh, we all suffer from that in some type of way. I'm talking about we all, everybody, in some type of way. But our resistance or our willingness to seek out for help or to kind of get a better understanding, many of us don't want to do that. And we're going to find, I'm going to ask you in a minute, why do you think that might be necessary that, especially in men, especially in African American men, we don't want to reach out to solicit any help because a lot of time, I think it's that pride thing. What are your thoughts on
Well, I think that, for African American men in this society, there's a lot of threats and a lot of challenges. And to be a strong man requires swallowing a lot of emotional challenges. So I think there's all different groups that are reluctant to reach out for mental health. But I think that it's an additional burden when it's not a safe and really respectful environment.
Jodi, it's a pleasure to have you. And we have at least 8 hours of questions and another 8 hours on top of that of just answers. JC led with a remarkably important question, and that is the impact that mental health has in various areas of our society. We are so torn apart. We are so diverse, so dispersed. And I write a lot about the importance of coming together, being one, looking beyond the outside to that which lies within. And so you wrote 2 books that have just caught my attention. From detached concern to empathy, humanizing medical practice. Boy, oh boy, boy, oh boy, we need to humanize medical practice. And the second book, Remaking the Self in the Wake of Illness, another powerful concept, the impact that illness has on our own view of ourselves. So we're going to get into all of these things. I want to start by asking you a little bit about how your career unfolded. Tell us the story of how you went from psychiatrist to chancellor's chair. Talk about that a little bit.
Well, that's a wonderful request. Thank you, Michael. I think that the thing that we just talked about, how our society is torn apart, and the way that we all stigmatize each other, distance ourselves, other each other, all the terrible forces at work, really are relevant to how I got in my whole career. Basically, my entire career is really about the way emotional assumptions, mistaken assumptions, get in the way of really being curious about and learning about each other, and how each and every person is a world of their own. Everyone is a world. We don't know anyone else's world. The worst thing, I've educated for 30 years, doctors, nurses, social workers. And the first thing I always tell them is, don't say to somebody, we're in the same boat, or I know how you feel, or I know how you feel. Because I spent about 30 years developing a model of empathic curiosity that drives all my work. And you become curious when you don't know something. So to me, the kind of empathy that's therapeutic and that also can be used in post-war reconciliation, it can be used in peacemaking among groups of people that have reasons not to trust each other, and certainly doctors, social workers, mental health therapists with patients. It's not empathy where you project your feelings onto someone else. It's empathy. You're doing it right now. I could tell you're a great listener. It's where you really want to listen and follow another person's lead into their world.
Very interesting. Very interesting. You for the sake of those who are listening and not watching, when you said, I can tell you're doing it right now, describe what you mean.
You're making eye contact with me, even over Zoom. You're nodding in an attuned way, and you're gesturing, and your face is changing with the different emotions and moods I'm conveying. So what's going on in my 30 years of studying empathy is you have 2 different parts of your brain that are activated right now. One part is the cognitive part, and one part is the emotional part. And the emotional part is giving you a natural, embodied resonance or attunement with me. Just like if you're at a game, watching a sports game, and people all get joyful, everyone gets joyful. We are animals that attune emotionally to each other. We resonate. So you're resonating with me. If I told you something very sad right now, your face would sort of drop, or your shoulders would drop, because you're naturally following and resonating with my moods. But the other thing you're doing, which to me is even more important, because we can have a crowd shared feeling that can go awry and go off the rails and cause problems, is you're thinking about and curious about what you don't already know about what I'm trying to tell you. You're trying to learn something and really learn something, and your mind is open to learning. And that cognitive part of empathy is essential in my view.
So that being open to someone, this other, I love the way you say we other the other. That is important because we look at people from the outside. We don't look to that which lies within.
Right. We're not trying to look at the world from inside their perspective, looking out. But let me just say something about that, in case the audience thinks we're talking about anything very complicated. It's actually very natural in societies that encourage it. And it's what we really love to do as humans is get inside and experience another person's story from the inside out through our imaginations. And the evidence of that is, think of all your listeners. How does everybody relax after a stressful day at night? We all watch TV series where we get very involved with the people in the series and their lives and their problems. And what are we doing? We're putting ourselves inside their world and looking from the inside out. We actually enjoy getting inside other people's lives and learning about them, unless there's other things getting in the way.
Hold it though. We got to take a station break. But as you see, we just getting started. We're going to come back. We're going to pick it up. We got so many more questions for Dr. Jodi. And if you want to be part of the conversation, all you have to do, just go to the platform that you're watching us on or listening to us on. Ask any question that you might have. I promise you we'll get you an answer. It's your life, and we'll see you shortly after the break.
Really get a chance to know who you are. And once you know who you are, you truly know who you are, love who you are. Love who you are. You're a masterpiece. Love who you are. Love who you were born to be. Love me some me. That's what I'm talking about. When you leave high school, you gotta know today or tomorrow, or hopefully today, what your plans are. Hopefully, there is no bad decision unless there is no plan. Create, collaborate, commit with confidence. Commit with what? Commit with what? And everything that you do.
Convey I love you. I'm proud of who you are, the one that keeps us close when we're apart. Walking from the darkness of all that we've been through, it seems that there might be a way to leave behind the loneliness we've known and live again life of
Welcome back to James Cooley Show. It's your life, and my sidekick here, Dr. Michael Mantell. And we got this absolutely wonderful guest on with us. And today's we're talking about a lot of different things. But the title of the show is Mental Health and Loneliness Crisis and the Upsurge of AI and Mental Health. I want to get off into all of those things, because I do know that they're important. Plus, as technology continue to evolve, we have to have trained specialists that are willing to evolve as well and get the understanding, get the education, get everything that's associated with making sure from an experience level when you're dealing with patients that you have the latest updates on what it's going to take to make the patients better, make all of us better, and to be able to disseminate the right information that's needed for us to continue to strive. So, Dr. Jodi, my question to you is the title of the show. Why was it so important that you came up with this title? And right now, as we all know, the Surgeon General, he always talks about the biggest crisis that we have is loneliness. And I just saw one of my commercials kind of brought that out a little bit. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, and I think it's very sad right now. We've really seen the unraveling of the social fabric of our world of connection, and certainly in the US, but actually internationally. We have a study from 2022 from a Harvard Loneliness in America study that said 61% of teens and young adults suffer from extreme loneliness. Young adults. 51% of women with young children, and 36% of the overall population. And before we went on the air today, we were talking about elders and the isolation of elders. And so basically, we've got everybody feeling extreme loneliness. And then the mental health crisis, it's incredible how much mental health needs are how much they're going up and how much they're being unmet. If you look at any change in the world, in a health thing, like if we cured all the main cancers in the world, we would change lifespan a couple of percent. It takes a lot to change anything by a lot of percent in the whole world with all the things there are, diseases, et cetera. We have the WHO had a report in 2022. We have a 25% increase in mental health diagnoses worldwide since COVID started. 25% increase. That's like unheard of. So basically, depression, anxiety, and suicidal thinking, there's a lot going on, and it's really serious.
We talk about loneliness, and the Waldinger study at Harvard, 80-year longitudinal study, says that the single factor that accounts for happiness is social connection. I want to come back to something you said in our first segment, and that is that our cognitive assumptions sort of keep us back or can move us forward. I love the example. I use it often. You walk down one side of the shopping mall, say hello to everybody, and people, oh, hi, hey, how you doing? And walk down the other side, don't say hello to anybody. Which side seems friendlier to you? It's not the side, it's you. So maybe those assumptions that we put out, Jodi, we have to look at first in terms of keeping ourselves lonely, telling ourselves what terrible, awful, horrible things could happen if we joined a club or went to some kind of a hobby group. What about our own self-reflections and the assumptions that are inaccurate that we're making? How can we help people with that?
Well, that's a great question. I think that we all have and I believe, and not just believe, I feel like from being a therapist for many years and part of the community, but I think we have unconscious factors that we don't know about. So that thing we talked about a few minutes ago about being empathically curious, because everyone is a world you don't know. In some ways, that empathic curiosity needs to also be directed towards ourselves. I mean, we've heard a lot about it, and I think you've covered self-compassion. But the second book that you mentioned of mine, Remaking the Self in the Wake of Illness, where I've followed people for over 10 years with very serious cancers, heart disease, injuries where they became disabled in a new way, in the prime of life, people with long COVID. All of these folks couldn't show up the way they were used to. They couldn't do the job with full physical prowess like they used to, be the same parent exactly the same way. They had physical illness reasons that their roles had to change. And most of them went through what you're describing, Michael, which is they kind of wanted to withdraw. They kind of wanted to make their life smaller and not expect people to understand them. Some of them actually had to, learn to be curious about their own barriers, but some of them were forced into situations that brought them out. Two of the stories that are very important there are a woman who was very stoic. She did have a marriage and a good job that she could keep up, but she had long-term diabetes, the kind that you get in childhood that can become very brittle in your 40s or 50s. And it got so bad that she couldn't really do much alone. And she was used to doing a lot of stuff alone. And she wound up getting a support animal. I don't know if you folks know this. It's amazing because I met her dog. You know how we have dogs for the blind, these amazing dogs? There are diabetes dogs. There are dogs that look at you when you're, I know, it's amazing. When your insulin drops, they give you a look and sit in front of you until you have a protein bar or something, or pop some sugar in your mouth, have some orange juice.
Wow.
And so she alone, she'd grown up in a family. She had this brittle diabetes. And when she was a little child, she had diabetes where she's in her 40s now, but when she was growing up, 1 in 4 people could actually have a serious pre-death or death incident from their blood sugar dropping. So she needed a lot of care, but her parents had a lot going on and they didn't give her a lot of emotional support. So she'd learned to become very stoic and not think anyone's really there for her. And turned out when she had this dog that was with her 24/7, always paying attention to her, it was almost like the dog in her unconscious mind gave her the kind of maternal attention and care she had always needed. And she changed. The dog, this is a strange story, but the dog wound up having, it has a lot of labs and other dogs for the blind. They have risks of getting their own cancers. Her dog got cancer. Oh. She didn't have a lot of money or whatever to help the dog. So she had to reach out and ask people for help. She had to ask for veterinary help. She had to ask to stay at someone else's house when the dog had surgery in another state. She had to have meals with other people. Anyway, it changed her outreach completely. Now she volunteers for families of children with cancer regularly to give support to families. And she reaches out to people all the time, even though she'd been so shy before, because it changed her life. And I knew there's a lot of stories like that, where people have adversity and they have to reach out. And if they're lucky enough to have a church community, a school community, but a lot of what we'll talk about when we talk about AI is my concern that we won't provide the social infrastructure for people.
Right.
We won't give them the social opportunity to reach out.
And a lot of young people that I take care of tell me, no, I have a great, my social health, my social life is great. I have a lot of friends I talk to all night long on their phone and, texting. That's not that's not what we're talking about here. And so you were going to say something.
Yeah, well, that's what the data shows. So the countries with the highest level of extreme loneliness in young people are the US and South Korea. As I said, 61% of people in the US that are young adults have extreme loneliness, and the same in South Korea, it's even higher. And those are the countries where people are on their phones or doing digital connections more than 10 hours a day. And that's why solving mental health through AI concerns me, because I do think people need real life. contact, embodied shared activities. But we really don't, and COVID, of course, made that very difficult. And now everyone is used to, just as we're doing this on Zoom, we've become very used to being with humans through Zoom and technology, which I think has been great because we would have been very isolated. Think of our elderly relatives that we can see on FaceTime. I can FaceTime my elderly relatives every day, and that's wonderful. But I do think that when it's only through technology, and we'll talk about when it's not even, there's no human there, where we're only talking to ourselves and AI, that's what concerns me the most. At least if you're texting real humans, you are actually, I would say you are having a relationship. I just think we also need physical ones. But I'm worried about the next phase, which is where we're not even really ever talking to anybody but a machine. That's why I'm writing. My third book project is called Engineering Empathy. It's not done. I'm not advertising it. But the reason I'm doing a study for it is because I'm worried that we're going to be just talking to ourselves and machines and not even using digital, at least with digital texting and Zoom, there is another human there. I'm worried about when there won't be another human there. That's what I'm worried about.
I got an email. I'm sorry, James.
No.
Oh, I was going to say,
I know we got about 2.5 minutes for the break. Jodi, you brought in AI, and a lot of people, from a mental health perspective or whatever, they like, what does she mean, AI? What? How is this going to help us without having to understand it? Can
Jodi,
you
you're on mute.
Yeah, I'm just waiting. I'm listening.
Can you kind of break it down to them so that they will get an understanding of this new technology that's being used now and how that contributes to making sure that people, especially our youth and young adults, etc., are able to get a better understanding and know that this is how the world is evolving, and that all of these things will play a major role. Now we got 2 minutes before the break. I know we can get it started.
I'm just going to start.
Okay.
Well, first of all, artificial intelligence, AI, is just a big blanket term for lots of different things. The most common thing we had up until a year ago is called machine learning. And it's just a statistical way to make predictions that can help us do things like read x-rays better. It has a lot of good uses in medicine. It's better at pattern recognition than humans. Much, much faster and much better. It's why we can recognize photographic or other things much quicker. It can recognize words much quicker. This thing we got about a year ago with ChatGPT and things like that, those are a specific kind of artificial intelligence called large language models, or LLM. And large language models predict the next word that's going to come, or the next sentence that's going to come after words. And it looks at millions and millions of words on the internet. When you're talking about, let's say we're talking about Valentine's Day, today's Valentine's Day, and what do women want their partners to give them, male or female partners to give them for a Valentine's Day? What do women want? Which, is ridiculous as an assumption, but, what would make somebody happy to get? Is it flowers or chocolates or whatever? And what should you say? We can use all the millions of conversations on the internet on Valentine's Day, and the machine can, in a minute, come up with the best words to say. And so that's a big change in human relationships, that machines can come up with better words to say than we can. And I think that is true. However, what happens when it is a machine saying to us and not a person? So a machine can coach us. So we talked about kids and isolation and their reluctance to reach out, or any population, mothers at home with young children, Black men who have felt like they haven't been listened to because they haven't been listened to. Anybody who's avoiding speaking out or reaching out, we could use AI to help us have the words to reach out. We could have an AI coach on our phone that says, you haven't talked to anyone new in a week, you should do it. An AI coach can do a lot of good things for us. However, should AI be our friend instead of a person? That's maybe after the break what we want to talk about.
Well, hold that thought. And you brought up a very important factor. And Dr. Mike, both of you and I missed that. Happy Valentine's Day to everybody out there. Also, not just Valentine's Day, but a happy Black History Month. I'd be reluctant if I didn't bring that up. And just happy Love Day. Love, 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 not hate, hate, hate. We're going to take a station break. We're going to come back. We got so much we want to talk to Dr. Jodi about when we return. And if you want to be part of the conversation, just go to the platform that you're watching us on, asking the questions that you might have. And I promise you, we'll get you an answer. It's your life. We'll see you shortly after the break. Dr. James J.C. Cooley from the United States of America, and I am here to just say, first of all, I'm so happy and honored to be on it, to be in the Coffee Book 2023, Unified Brain Z and the other organizations. Thank you so much for giving me an opportunity to be a part of this collection. Hello, welcome back to James Cooley Show. It's your life, and my absolutely fantastic co-host, Dr. Mike Mantell, and also extraordinary, wonderful guest. We're so fortunate to have her on. Like we mentioned in the beginning, she's one of the best in the business is what she do. And she does a lot. And just continuously doing things, you know, I tell you, just pushing forward new paths, identifying new things, working with the top people in her industry and the profession to help us become better at everything we do, especially when it comes to mental health. We're talking about loneliness. We're talking about all of these other type of things that go with that. Now we're talking about AI, how that plays. Now, I can tell you what she just said about AI. Michelle and I do this all the time. We go to AI and ask for something. and not thinking that you're going to get certain things within a minute. Bam! And like, well, I wasn't expecting this. One thing I did, Dr. Mike, was my new book that I released a couple of months back, where you wrote the foreword. I went to AI and I said, give me a quick synopsis. Who is Dr. James J.C. Cooley Blackman? Point of remind body. Bam! It came up. I said, I don't know that guy. But it broke it down. And I'm talking about what technology, Dr. Jodi, what we're getting at, is it's very useful if we use it the right way. What are your thoughts on that?
My bias and my belief is that we need to use it to increase human connection, not to decrease human connection. So in medicine, where I'm advising, I think it's really important, for example, that we use AI because it can do the text the way Dr. Cooley just described. It can put out the words and summarize that. We use it to do the medical records, because right now the average physician spends 2.5 hours every night not being with their family, catching up on medical records. And as we know, anyone who's gone to the doctor in recent years, our doctors don't make eye contact with us or really even look at us because they have to keep the electronic medical record the whole time. So we could take AI, and this is being done, have it listen in and create the medical record, and the doctor can look at us again and attune to us emotionally the way we talked about earlier today. And guess what? My research, my studies on medical students and doctors and burnout, and a lot of other people's research shows that if doctors do connect with us, or nurses, social workers, because they don't have to do all the record keeping, they like their jobs better and they burn out less. And so some of our personnel issues get less serious. So AI should replace the part that we don't need the human for. My concern is that there's a lot of money in the business sector right now. There's an expectation that replacing therapists and others, replacing them completely with AI, will be a $6.5 billion growth industry for profits, $6.5 billion in profits, which means the industry's got a lot more money in it than that. And a lot of companies are starting now that are creating bots to provide mental health, for example, for kids in schools. And that concerns me because we just talked about how there's a loneliness crisis in adolescents and young adults because they're online all the time. So my biggest worry is that we will too quickly see the business opportunity in not having school psychologists, not having school therapists, not having social workers, not having after-school programs, all of which cost money, and just give kids bots. And that's the risk I'm trying to keep us from taking. I'm trying to keep us in touch with the best uses of AI.
I recently got an email and said I'd be looking for a therapist for my 19-year-old daughter, and your name popped up, and I'd love to have you talk with my daughter. The way it was worded, something just didn't feel right. So I wrote back and I said, why don't you, your daughter's 19, why don't you send me her phone number and I will give her a call directly. And the bot wrote, the person wrote back and said, well, tell me, where I can mail the check to you. It'll be a cashier's check. It won't be a credit card, blah, blah, blah. And I knew it. So something just said to me, check out this email. And I copied the email, put it in Google. Sure enough, there was the entire script that the bot sent to me. It was all a scam. What concerns me is that although chat, whatever it's GPT, can write these things, they're going to miss a lot. And we're having people not talk to real human beings. It's fake empathy. And I just feel like we are setting the world up for more and more distance and division. So I want to hear a little bit about how you think is there any good in artificial intelligence in terms of promoting social health?
Yes, a lot of good in the sense, well, first of all, in terms of again, I've said in the medical or therapy sector, what's ruining and burning out, I mean, we talk about the same statistics. It's over 60% burnout in primary care doctors, nurses, and social workers. So if AI can do the medical record keeping and a lot of electronic record keeping, which people are putting into place right now, that can have a huge improvement. I mean, we can humanize caregiving relationships again.
I'm sorry, you've seen the studies that say when patients are given a AI written response to them versus what their physician actually says to them, many patients prefer what they don't know, but it's a chat GPT version. They feel it has more empathy. And I scratch my head when I read that. What does that mean about humanizing medical practice? That patients prefer the chat GPT response, which feels more empathic to them.
Well, yes, so first of all, that's the large language model, which is ChatGPT, is taking millions and millions of, if you wanted to ask, how do I use empathy to tell someone they have cancer? You can look in ChatGPT in 2 minutes, and it can look through millions and millions of the best examples of the best doctors in the world saying what they want if they've put it in the internet. So it's no surprise that it can give really good wording advice. Actually, I was part of a group, but I predicted this 7 years ago. I mean, I didn't know I wish I knew how to develop the technology. I'd be a whole different kind of brain. I would know, I can never, it's very interesting, the thought that developed the technology, but the fact that people will take words typed by a machine, which is what it is, and those words could be better words than a person who's burned out and tired on any given day, a primary care doctor might come up with. That is not a surprise. It's not. And that people would say, if they just see the words typed, that these words are better than these words is not a surprise. First of all, as humans, like I said, we burn out, we're tired, we're fallible. We're not great. We're not perfect empathy providers, that's for sure. And if you had all the millions of conversations and could pick the best ones, you're going to do better than that. The question is it really just the typed words that will matter in the long run for people? Or is there a relationship that does matter? And by the way, I think we have to study this. I've learned through the years I've been involved with technologies to never say I know how it's going to go, because we don't. So I think people can find machines helpful. So you asked me when. One place in psychiatry and psychotherapy and mental illness that I think that these large language models or AI models will be very helpful already is in doing cognitive behavioral therapy. What's that? That's therapy that looks at your behavior and your problematic beliefs. Like we talked about, let's say I have a belief, no one's going to like me, so I'm not going to talk to anybody. Or these people will not treat me with respect, so I'm not going to say hello to them. Even if there's reasons to believe that, my cognitive therapy coach on my phone could say to me, like I said, you haven't tried a new thing today. And even if it backfires, you'll be proud of yourself for trying. So why don't you say something new to some new person today? That's cognitive behavioral therapy. A coach or an agent on my phone, including for kids, including for a shy kid, saying, that even though they're lonely and they shouldn't be online all the time, if the coach tells them to talk to a human and how they might do that better, all of that would be a really productive use of AI. The thing that I am concerned about is that there's a lot of money going into completely replacing the human and specifically marketing AI, not to be a coach or a cognitive behavioral advisor, but to say AI loves you. We have relationship bots. This is the person who loves you is the AI. I've studied the relationship bots. Your best friend is the AI. Your trusted therapist that you can tell your deepest thoughts to, that really will be there for you if you need it, is the AI. And I would just say one thing about the therapy part. the therapist, the mental health AI bots so far, even the ones that are working with the FDA that replace humans, they tell you, we provide empathy for you. We are there for you. Tell us all your thoughts. If you're depressed, the person says, I'm having suicidal thoughts, which is 40% of people with depression have some, especially young adults. It kicks you off the app and says, dial 911. And I want to see a study of how much suicidality that actually then triggers. I want to see that followed. Just like with drugs, we need post-market follow-up. With gene editing, which I work on, and neurodrugs, we have to study how they really affect people years later. I want to see how these mental health apps, even the professional ones, never mind the non-professional ones, which are very common now, that have no regulation, all of them, they say they're your friend and they're empathic and they tell them your thoughts. What happens when the minute you really express vulnerability, you're kicked out? Imagine a real human therapist doing that. So we have to think about, what are we setting people up for? Are we telling them to trust us, that we love them, we really love them, and we're there for them? Not a good plan. And that's what the marketing is doing. Or are we telling young people, this is your smart notebook, and you have social anxiety, so let me be your coach. Okay, let's go outside today. Okay, let's talk to a new person today. That's a great use.
Hold that though.
Wow.
Because we got, I got to pay the bills. So we had to take a station break. I'm looking at the numbers, Dr. Mike. It's a lot of folks that are watching us all across the world, but they ain't asking no questions. But that's okay.
They're absorbed. They're learning.
Because as you see, Dr. Jodi bringing it always. And Dr. Jodi, before I take the break, I have to do this because when I get intrigued, when I get excited, I want to put the word out as quickly as possible that you are invited back on the show again if your schedule permits. One of the things that you mentioned is you deal with professional doctors, nurses, burnout. I think that's so important. And Dr. Mike and I are going to get together. We're going to come up with something, but if your schedule permit, we would love to have you back on again real soon. But we're going to take a station break and we're going to come back. It ain't over yet. It ain't over yet. We're going to pick it up because it's your life. And we'll see you shortly after the break.
Noah Dingley here, producer of The James Cooley Show, It's Your Life. And the new audio version of James' book, Country Boy, City Boy, A Journey That Ain't Over Yet, is a must-have. James shares his true life story of struggle and success in America. It's both a cautionary tale and a roadmap to achieving the American dream. Get the new audio version of Country Boy, City Boy, A Journey That Ain't Over Yet by James Cooley on Amazon.com or wherever audiobooks are sold.
Welcome back to the James Cooley Show. It's your life. And Dr. Jodi, you're incredible. And it's how you break it down, how you explain, how you do these things. And you can feel the excitement coming from you because it's coming from your heart. And it's coming from, this is what I believe, this is what I think, this is how I feel. Let me say, this is what I believe, this is what I think, this is how I feel. So I'm going to share that with you. And if you're on the same level as me, maybe not from a doctor or a PhD, a medical MD perspective, but I'm talking about life. Wow. One of the best in the business. And I got to thank Dr. Mike. I know we only got about 4.5 minutes left of the show. Dr. Mike for always coming up with these absolutely fantastic guests. And I'm just, Doc, they accept the invitation and they come and they see how much fun we have. At least I think.
So we have a couple of minutes left, JC, and I want to come back to the book Remaking the Self in the Wake of Illness, for which you had a magnificent award, the Guggenheim Award in Health and Medicine. And I want to just touch on that a little bit. We talked about mental health and loneliness and AI, but let's talk about this because many people experience all kinds of physical and emotional difficulties, health difficulties. We have health disparity, health illiteracy. We have all these things going on. In terms of remaking oneself when we are faced with an illness, we hear people who have cancer and they say, you know, I've decided I'm going to become happy now. And I often wonder when I talk to patients who tell me that, why did you wait till you have cancer? Why couldn't you make yourself happy before the cancer? Can you talk a little bit about how people can control their thinking through an illness or an injury that does impact life?
Well, first of all, that's a profound question. You know, we all wish we could do it a little sooner. But I think that what I've seen through studying the people that I followed for over 10 years, first of all, unfortunately, illness really does affect our sense of self a lot. We really, especially in American culture, which is a culture where we are what we do, not who we are. We judge people. We have a lot of pressure on people to be productive, whether it's in their job or as parents or whatever. But when people can't do things quite at the level that they're used to doing it, people can feel a kind of loss of self. And of course, pain, discomfort, sleep problems make it harder to feel like oneself. So there's a lot of stress on one's sense of self when one goes through chronic illness. And another thing that can happen at that time is there can be a lot of pressure with the American sort of verbiage of like, you can fight your cancer, you can defeat it, you can defeat your disability. When people have, you know, can't just fight it or defeat it because it's not all in our power in that way, then they can feel even worse and they can feel isolated from other people. So this is a book studying those people who found themselves going through those really rock bottom hard times in their sense of self and what got them out of it. And what I found is that what got them out of it is a lot like what helps people in therapy, which is the empathy that in therapy, it comes from a therapist, but people who hadn't really had a lot of empathy for themselves when they really needed it, learned to have empathy for themselves. And I described 5 pathways that help people do that. The first of which is finding a secure, holding relationship or someone or something that makes you feel unconditional regard. So the story of the woman with the dog who watched her blood sugar all the time and was always there for her, that was where she found a maternal holding or a safe environment or some loving animal that would be with her all the time, which helped her sort of accept herself more. Another man found that through a cardiac transplant team. It doesn't have to be, it's very unusual places people find it, because the transplant team, in his case, with some amazing nurses on the team, they're available 24/7. And this young man had lost his mom very young when he was only 2. And he wasn't used to feeling there's someone or someplace that's always going to help take care of me. And he was a middle-aged man. And he found that the fact that the team was a place that he could always go to. But other people can find it with friends, with their church, with spouses. But if you're not used to expecting anyone to take care of you, people are very afraid of depending on other people. When you're kind of finding that you had to depend on someone or something, some animal, some group, your church group, whatever, and they really came through, that can be an enormous beginning of providing empathy for yourself.
So
Wow.
you have 5 things you mentioned, and this book is so important because for so many people going through an illness, I really want to urge people, pick this up, read it, and then practice it.
I have to say it's not out yet, but look for it at the end of the year.
You know what?
Thank you, Jodi.
We're out of time. However, Dr. Jodi, I hope you accept our invitation to return.
I'd be delighted. It's a pleasure to be with both of you. You're amazing human beings.
Thank you.
And it's a delight to be with both of you.
Wow. It's more than a delight to be with you. Just listen how you explain all of your different things. I want to know a little bit more. When your book come out?
Well, I don't think it'll be out till the end of 24, early 2025.
Okay. Yeah. So, but I tell you what, I want to thank you so much for taking the time to come on the James Cooley Show, Dr. Michael Mantell Show. 306 degrees. Yeah. I'd like to thank Michelle Cooley for putting together another absolutely fantastic show. Most importantly, I'd like to thank our viewers and our listeners for tuning in to the James Cooley Show. It's your life, Monday through Friday, 12 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Always, always, always dream big, think big, and be big at everything that you do. We'll be back tomorrow, same time, same place. It's your life.